Trusova.
You're in the loop. We're here to discuss the ups, downs, and sideways of the sport of figure skating, and maybe give you +5 GOE along the way. Let's introduce this week's hosts.
Hey, it's Kat, and I'm currently recovering from 4 continents, aka from a cold that I caught screaming in an ice rink all week. You can find me on Twitter at @cattweets with no e's.
Hi, I'm Evie, and I started off thinking that 4 continents was extremely cursed, but it all turned out pretty decently okay in the end. I'm on Twitter at @doubleflots.
Hi, I'm Kite. I completely wrecked my sleep schedule to watch 4 continents live, and it was worth it in the end. You can find me on Twitter at MossyZing.
Okie dokie. So we've got a couple of things of figure skating related news that have happened in the last week, mostly just results of other competitions that have happened.
First off, we have the Russian Junior Nationals. So the winners of Russian Junior Nats were, for ladies, Alexandra Trusova. For men's, we have Daniil Samsonov. For dance, Sofia Shevchenko and Igor Eremenko. And for pairs, Anastasia Mishina and Alexander Galimov.
And from those results, Russia announced the team for the Junior World Championships next month. So for ladies, they're going to be sending Alexandra Trusova, Aliona Kostoronaya, and Anna Sherbakova. For men, they're going to be sending Peter Gomenik, Roman Savasin, and Alexei Erikov. For dance, they're going to be sending Sofia Shevchenko and Igor Eremenko, Arina Ushakova and Maxim Nekrasov, Elizaveta Kudaberdieva and Nikita Nazarov. And for pairs, they're going to be sending Anastasia Mishina and Alexander Galyamov, Polina Kostiukovic and Dmitry Ielin, and Apollinaria Panfilova and Dmitry Rylov. So it's going to be a pretty crazy junior worlds, I think, with this great team.
And in Russian seniors, Elizaveta Tuktamisheva won the Dragon Cup this past week, so she had to sit out the European Championships, unfortunately, because she was recovering from pneumonia that she caught after the Grand Prix final. So this is expected to be her last competition before Worlds, which we assume that she's going to be selected for, but we don't actually know yet.
We hope that she's going to be selected
She
for.
should be selected.
She should, yeah.
In addition to 4 continents, we also had the Bavarian Open this week. The winners were, for ladies, Satoko Miyahara. For men, Koshiro Shimada. For dance, Anastasia Shiplevaya and Grigory Smirnov. And for pairs, Laura Barquero and Aritz Maestu.
And then France has also announced its team for Worlds. For ladies, they're sending Laurine Lecavalier. For men, they're sending Kevin Amos. For dance, they're sending Gabriela Papadakis and Guillaume Cizeron, and Marie-Jade Loriot and Romain Lagac. And for pairs, they're sending Vanessa James and Morgan Cypre.
And finally, Safe Sport has confirmed that it will no longer be investigating the allegations into John Coughlin, who took his life last month following some allegations of sexual misconduct. And we want to give that case the attention that it deserves, of course. So we'll be talking about all of the proceedings and the information regarding that in another mini-sode, which will be forthcoming.
One judge has them second. Should be carried off and spanked.
So this week, we're going to be talking all about the 4 Continents Championship, which happened this week. You know, we had Euros just a couple weeks ago, and now we're back at it again with another big championship.
Yes, finally.
Finally. And it was in Anaheim in the States. And Kat, you actually went to go see the competition live.
Yes, it was so much fun. I had such a great time there, honestly. I was a little bit afraid because I was kind of traveling solo this time, and I didn't really have anyone to like super hang out with or like travel with, so I had a really, really great time meeting a lot of new people and meeting a bunch of skaters as well and handing out flower crowns. It was super fun, and it was also really interesting, or it was really fun that like a lot of people could like spot me in the audience. I got so many mentions on Twitter that like they could spot me in the audience, which I thought was really adorable.
Yeah, you were so easily like recognizable because you were sitting like in the very first row, like the skaters entrance, and also you were wearing a hat the whole time, and so like every time we saw you on the screen we were just like, Kat, like,
we see you.
I got really lucky this time around. I think I had the perfect seat for like handing out gifts and flower crowns because, like you said, I was literally the very first seat closest to the skaters entrance, literally right next to the Zamboni and sweepers.
Very good seats for gift giving.
It was perfect for gift giving because like people could spot me like immediately, and like that's like the one corner that all the skaters kind of like migrate to, because the other side, like on the judges side, was mostly empty because I think it was mostly for like guests and like the skaters seats. So the side opposite the judges was like the more populated side.
Yeah, but we noticed that when we were watching on the stream that like the crowd seemed pretty empty, especially for an event that was in the States. Like, especially on the judges' side of things, it was basically near empty. At least to us on the stream, it looked like that.
Yeah, no, it definitely looked really empty from my side too. But like, yeah, all the seats for the spectators seemed to be on the opposite the judges' side. I think that I'm not exactly sure why the judges' side was so empty. I just remember seeing a bunch of stickers on the seats on the judges' side, and I wasn't sure if they were just like reserved or what, but yeah.
Well, tickets for Four Continents were pretty expensive, weren't they?
Oh yeah, they definitely were. I only got my tickets because I bought them like half price, so.
Yeah, they were like $600, I think, retail.
Yikes.
For like the best all event seats. But also, like, you have to remember that like a lot of the events took place during the week, like in the middle of the afternoon, so a lot of people like can't get off work or school to go and watch figure skating. So you definitely saw that the audience was like a lot fuller during like the Friday and Saturday and Sunday events.
The men's and ladies free skates had a lot of people attending.
Yeah, it looked
but
like it.
The pairs short program had like almost no one. I was really sad. But yeah, overall, it was a really great event, I thought. Barring some unforeseen security struggles.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. What the hell was that?
I don't know. Honestly, I think that it was just mostly the event organizers versus like the Honda Center, their policies not being in line and not fully understanding what like figure skating competitions entail. Because I had people fight me about the banners on the second day of practice, but then someone told me, oh hey, word on the street is that tomorrow they're going to let you bring the banners in, so bring the banners tomorrow. I still had someone fight me again on Thursday, which is like the first day of competition, but then I went to talk to the security guard like right before the event started. After practice, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to my seat, I want to go like hang these banners. And he was like, okay, we'll let you hang them at 11:30, which is like an hour before the competition starts. And I was like, wait, you're going to let us hang the banners? Like before they told us they wouldn't let us hang banners at all.
Gotta love inconsistent messaging.
Oh my goodness. Just, yeah, it was a lot. The Honda Center was a lot. But overall, it worked out in the end and we got the banners hung up and there were lots of great banners hanging around. So it was great.
So, moving into more discussion about the actual competition that happened at Four Continents. So, one of the overarching themes that we unfortunately noticed throughout the event was the fact that many of the calls from the tech panel were quite inconsistent for the men's and the ladies' short programs and free skates. And so we saw several instances where the tech panel showed varying degrees of lenience on under-rotation calls.
Yeah, so the men's short program, there was definitely an aura of the fact that the under-rotation weren't being noticed by the tech panel, or at least being noticed but not being called. It was a very lenient panel, to say the least, in the short program here. So I think the biggest example of that was Vincent Zhou. He's got a really big international reputation for under-rotating his jumps. It's not a new problem. He's had it for quite a while, and obviously he came first in the short program here, and he became the fourth man to score over 100. But his jumps, all of them were landed on either at the quarter or just above the quarter. They were basically all under-rotated to not just through slow-mo, you could see it in real time that he was not rotating his jumps. And again, this isn't a new problem for him, especially with his quads. He has struggled rotating them in the past. And the tech panel didn't call any of them. The quad lutz, the quad sal, and the triple axel, they were all uncalled, and that helped him break the 100-point mark. So it was very disappointing, at least from my perspective, to see that this was happening. And these calls persisted throughout the program. We also had Junhwan Cha of Korea, who under-rotated his quad sal and his triple loop, which was in combination with the triple lutz. And that wasn't called by the panel as well, and he ended up coming in second. And again, Jun has an international reputation of under-rotating mainly his quads and also his triple loop. These aren't new problems, but they were being ignored in the short program.
Yeah, and taking all of that into consideration, the fact that the two leaders after the short program both had pretty noticeable under rotations that weren't called by the tech panel. It does seem like Bo Young-jin should have won the short program because of the significant errors that weren't called by the panel. So even though Bo Young did have a step out on the opening quad lutz in his program, at least personally, I think he should have been in first after the short program.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's quite surprising that the panel was this lenient in the short program, especially because Shin Amano was on as assistant technical specialist, and he's a tech specialist that's quite known for being very strict when it comes to under rotations. Some people might remember that he was on the panel at Worlds 2018, and during the free skate, he was actually seen by fans to be like pointing his like pen at the playback stream for the other people on the tech panel, like pointing out Maria Sotskova's under rotations in her free skate, and then she ended up getting 4 calls in that free from them. So it's a known thing in a lot of the figure skating fandom, but if Shin's on the panel, you can kind of expect calls to be pretty strict. So it was quite surprising, I think, to see this kind of lenience in the short. And then we also saw in the free that they weren't as lenient. They kind of took a step back and they were being kind of selectively strict with under rotations in the free skate.
Yeah, maybe they heard us all yelling about it or something. Or like Shin Amano is just resurrected between the men's short and the men's free. But again, like Evie said, it was quite a selectively strict tech panel. So there were definitely some under rotations that weren't called, while other skaters got just completely hammered on under rotation calls. So for example, Shoma Uno very clearly under rotated his quad flip in the free skate. And it wasn't called, but when you play it back at like quarter speed, you can actually see that he comes down right on the quarter mark, which under the new rules should be considered an under rotation. And I would also personally argue that the second quad toe in his program, which was in combination with a double toe, was borderline, or at least should have been reviewed by the tech panel, which I don't believe it was. And also some of Vincent Zhou's jumps were called in the free skate while others were not. So for example, they called his quad lutz triple toe combination, but they only called the triple toe. But then when you play it back, you can see that the quad lutz was also under rotated. And then all of his other quads were called under rotated. And obviously, again, this is not a new problem for him. He has a pretty consistent reputation for under rotating his quads. So it's not like the under rotation problem just sprouted between the short program and the free skate. It's kind of been a persistent issue for him. So it's just really a head scratcher that all of these calls were just ignored for him in the short program. And then finally, Junhwan Cha unfortunately received a total of 6 under rotation calls in the free skate when he wasn't called on any in the short program, and ended up dropping from 2nd place to 6th place because of these under rotation calls. And it was just kind of a reminder of how inconsistent this season has been in terms of calling under rotations when they're visible even in real time.
Yeah, and it was quite shocking to see Junhwan's scores in the free skate, especially since like his coaches in the Kiss and Cry, they were all like feeling really positive afterwards, and you could see that they were quite, upbeat about it. And then as soon as the scores hit and they noticed how low the tech score was, it was just this giant like sigh moment. It was just like, oh god, 6 under rotation calls in comparison to getting none in the short program. That's just insane.
Yeah, it really just hits home like how different and inconsistent the judging was between the 2 days, which obviously the whole point of having a judging system and rewarding grade of execution is that this is supposed to be an objective measure of what the skaters are doing on the ice, and that's just not the case at all, and it's quite disheartening to see.
And like you talk about inconsistency like in between different competitions, like it can be hard sometimes to compare results from different competitions when you have different panels and stuff, but this is all in the one competition with the same tech panel across just 2 segments, and yet the results and amount of calls was so wildly different. It's really confusing. And we had similar problems, I think not to as great a degree, but still present in the ladies as well. In the short program, the tech panel was quite lenient towards under rotations, and as we know that Brady Tennell came in first in the short program, only 0.60 above Kaori Sakamoto, but Brady had some uncalled errors. Her triple Lutz and her triple toe combo were both jumps were under-rotated, and her triple flip was also under-rotated, and none of those were called. Mariah Bell also had the same problem with her triple Lutz, triple toe combo where both jumps were under-rotated, and her triple flip was pretty on the borderline, like very close to being landed on the quarter, so it should have at least been reviewed. And both of these ladies don't have great Lutz edges. You know, it's kind of known that they have flutzes. And I mean, I'm personally not that surprised that the panel didn't call that as well, because there's no kind of international reputation of them calling those Lutzes. So I'm not shocked by that. But especially with Mariah, who is known for being quite a big under-rotator internationally, I was kind of surprised. And, you know, we're going to get into this more when we talk more about the ladies, but putting Brady above Kaori when Kaori skated a clean short program just shouldn't have happened, full stop.
Definitely a choice, and it was the wrong choice. But again, we saw with the ladies that the tech panel somehow just woke up for the free skate. And so Brady, who was in the lead after the short program, ended up getting called 4 times on under rotations, as did Hanul Kim of Korea. And Elaine Chartrand of Canada got 5 under rotation calls in her program. But on the flip side of that, Mariah Bell did not get any calls in the free program, even though she had several jumps that were either very clearly under rotated or on the border of the quarter rotation, should have at least been looked at again. So her first triple flip was definitely under rotated according to the new rules. She landed on the quarter mark. The second triple flip in her program is pretty borderline, probably should have been reviewed. And then her last triple Lutz in combination was very clearly under rotated, even in real time, and it wasn't called. And also we had some more inconsistencies in the ladies free skate with edge warnings and edge calls on the Lutz and the flip. So Kaori Sakamoto, she did get an edge warning on her Lutz. And she's known to have a flutz, so this is not really a surprising call. But Brady, Mariah, and Mai Mihara, who also either have flat Lutzes or flutzes, did not get called on their Lutz jumps. So again, just not really sure like why some of the ladies were called, whereas some of them weren't, when they're all known to have pretty similar issues with tech internationally.
I mean, comparing them, Kaori's Lutz in the free skate was like very clearly inside. Like, I'm actually quite surprised that she didn't get a full-on edge call for that. Looking at the footage, you can see that while she does prep the outside edge, like right as she strikes her toe pick down, she goes onto a full inside edge. And Brady, Mariah, and Mai, they all had pretty flat edges, but they weren't like full on inside like Kaori's was. So I'm quite surprised that the panel didn't give Kaori an edge call and then the other 3 edge warnings. But again, I mean, with Brady and Mariah, you know, we have to also think about the fact that this is an event held in America. It's not as surprising when we see American ladies at American events get kind of slightly more lenient calls. There's a bit more of a historical precedence for that, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So not really sure what's going on.
It's quite surprising that we see panels vary that much in 2 separate events as well, because like it's not that outlandish to see one discipline that varies in tech panel calling, but to see 2 at the same event is quite surprising. And it worries me a lot because this kind of variance really makes me think about how this kind of affects the skaters' morale, the skaters that are being affected by these calls. You could see that, like, even in after the short program, the men's short program, Vincent, like, saying to the media how he was, like, proud of himself for being able to jump cleanly today and, like, being able to hit the 100 point, where the judges kind of did him a disservice by not calling his problems in that program. It's still the judge's job to give fair and accurate calls to the skater. And when you don't do that, you're doing them a disservice because, you know, Vincent knows that he does have really quite serious under rotation issues. So if he continued to get these kind of lenient calls, that might not encourage him, I guess is probably the right word, to go and work and fix them, especially with the fact that Tom Z, his coach, goes off at the tech panel being at fault every time he does get called on under rotations, which probably doesn't help.
Yeah, and kind of just to use Vincent as an example here, he did look quite shocked when he got his score for the free skate, because I think it was quite a bit lower than he anticipated. which again is the tech panel kind of falsely building up someone's confidence by not calling or not pointing out the areas in their skating where they can improve, and then all of a sudden they start doing their jobs and scoring by the handbook, and it's kind of a shock to the skater. And Vincent also said after the free skate that he thought he could contend for a medal at the World Championships, which in my opinion is going to be pretty hard for him to do, knowing the field that's going to be there, unless several of his competitors just have a bad competition. But again, I think it's the fact that the judges aren't quite fully doing their job, that he's being given this unrealistic sense of confidence in his technique. And like Evie said, with his coach, like actually going out on Facebook and Twitter and like basically calling out the tech panels for like unfairly calling him, quote unquote, and saying that, you know, Vincent has something like special ankles and that's why his jumps look like that and they're not actually under rotated. And it's a whole lot. And in my opinion, it's pretty irresponsible for a coach of a world-class skater to be ignoring their skaters' technical flaws like this, especially when this has been a problem in the past for him. This is not something that, you know, suddenly emerged at this competition. And I think that a lot of his kind of, again, unrealistic sense of confidence in his technique stems from the fact that his coaching team, instead of directly addressing these flaws in his skating, are kind of trying to push the onus of it onto the judges and saying, you know, when the judges don't call it, then that means that, you know, we're doing something right, and that when they do call it, it's because the judges are wrong. And it's just quite irresponsible. And not only does it do the skater a disservice, it also unfairly, I think, penalizes their competitors who do have good technique and have learned good technique, and they're not encouraged to necessarily fix their issues when, you know, they're going to get high scores anyway, and then they're not getting rewarded for what they're doing correctly, and, you know, they're not being told what they could do better, and it's not really doing anyone a favor to ignore these tech calls.
I really hope that next month at Worlds we're going to have pretty strict panels. I have a kind of feeling that we probably will end up getting that, but yeah, I really hope that, especially we're at a competition that is like very important, because, you know, in the grand scheme of things, Four Continents isn't the most important competition of the season. But if this kind of thing happened at Worlds, I can only imagine the backlash that would have resulted.
Yep. Think strict for Worlds.
For me, the highlight of this event was obviously the pairs. A little known fact that I bought tickets to Four Continents, or I resolved to go to Four Continents when I heard that Sway and Han were going to be there.
What a surprise. Shocking.
I'm shocked. This is brand new information.
I was not planning on going to this event at all. And then once they announced that they were going, I was like, well, I have to go now.
That is the most cat thing in the world.
My brand. So for the pairs are the podium, Sui Wenjing and Han Cong from China, Kirsten Moore Towers and Michael Marinaro from Canada, and Peng Cheng and Jin Yang from China. So, of course, we're going to talk about the highlight of the pairs event, right?
Of course.
Oh, my goodness. Guys, seeing them live is just like, they're so magical and perfect. And honestly, it feels like the pairs field is like, has finally validated its existence with them back again.
Ouch.
Honestly, I feel like the pairs field has just been dwindling, and now they are back, and the pairs is finally a thing again.
James and Cypre, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I love them so much, but Sway and Han are just the class of the pairs field. Like, I think that I love James and Cypre, and like, you've heard me crying about them multiple times on previous episodes. I've seen you
crying about them multiple times.
Yes, you've also seen me cry about them. And I love them so much. But Sway and Han are just so special in their connection to each other. Their basic skating is so remarkable. And just how perfectly in sync they are, despite the fact that they are just 2 months into intense practice. Like, I'm pretty sure they just started practicing like at their normal intensity in December, 2 weeks before Chinese nationals. And so this was only the third time they did their free skate run through, just full out, which is just incredible, considering they made only one major mistake in addition to the kind of wonky level 2 pair spin, but we'll get to that later. But they're just so special, and that free skate is just everything. Like, they said they wanted to be innovative and incorporate like elements that have never been done by pairs previously, and I think that their free skate definitely shows that. And like the opening movements where she just kind of weaves her hand in and out, and the handstand to that choreo sequence where it looks like they're like flapping like wings. They're just so in sync. They have beautiful air positions and throws. They have a gorgeous twist, which you wouldn't expect considering how small they are. They have incredibly fast lifts. Like that final lift just flies across the rink so fast with those change in positions with no hands. Oh man, they're just so amazing and spectacular.
They are just insane. It was so good to see them back in competition here and see them do so well, especially. I think that free skate definitely has the potential to become my new favorite program of theirs. At the moment, I think it's my favorite program of theirs is probably Bridge Over Troubled Water from 16 and 17, because I just remember full on like openly sobbing during the pairs free at Worlds. That was just a moment. But this free skate and the short program as well, there's something about them that's just so special that like they have a connection that no other pairs team in the field currently has, and I'm just so happy to see them back.
So I think the judges were pretty much like ready to give them the world record, at least in the short program, like before they even came out.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately she had the fall on the triple toe, and so that actually knocked them down to second place. And, you know, with Sui and Han out for most of this season, the momentum in the pairs field, I think, has pretty solidly shifted towards James and Cypre, because they are the only undefeated pair left in the world. But I think Sui and Han, if they get back to, like, the level that they were at during the Olympics, they could easily grab that world title if they're clean. And they were pretty close to being clean here. They made two pretty big mistakes, but again, for how long they've been out of competition, I think it's pretty amazing that they were still able to, you know, eke out the win here, coming back from a year-long hiatus. And it just really shows, like, how strong they are as a team and the caliber of athlete they are, especially since the second place pairs team actually didn't make any major mistakes.
Honestly, they are, like, that team that I'm like, I don't care about falls. Like, give them 80. Like, what? Like, I don't care that they fell. Like, they deserve 10s in, like, everything. Like, skating skills and the composition and interpretation, like, 10s all the time. Like, does not matter what they do, they deserve 10s. And they honestly remind me so much of ice dancers in the way that, especially, like, when I was watching them warm up during practice, they practice together in hold. Or they warm up together in hold, which I don't see pairs normally do that. And like Wenjing's hands kind of have that same kind of tension that remind me so much of like Yuzuru or Aliona Kostornaya, where there's just so much energy that flows from them at all times. Like the awareness of her hands at all times is just so perfect that like she deserves all of the performance and interpretation points that ever existed. She's just wonderful.
But side-by-side triple Salcos is still very, very cursed.
Oh, yes. And, like, they landed them in practice, so I know that she has the capability to do that. Although I was really shocked to see her fall on the triple toes in the short program. I was like, no!
When was the last time we saw them make a major mistake like that in the short program or the side-by-side? I can't remember
I'm pretty sure that it was the last time I remember them making a mistake was at the Grand Prix final in 2017 when he fell on the triple toes. And he never does that either. Like, they rarely ever make a mistake in the short program.
Very uncharacteristic, yeah.
Extremely uncharacteristic of those two. But I think that if they skate clean in the short program, James and Cypre have historically not been as strong in the short program. It's not as strong of a program as their free skate, and they do have some minor inconsistencies as well. So if Sui and Han can execute like they normally do for their short program and then just land the triple sal some way, even if it's two-footed, turned out, whatever, like
Just stay
Just
on your
land
feet.
it on one foot. Or no, just land it. Just land it.
Just land on your feet.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a sign that if Swain hands skate clean, the judges are willing to really hand out the big marks to them. You know, you could see them even with the mistakes, they were still getting really good marks.
Because they also hit their levels. The big money elements are obviously the lifts and the twists in pairs. And they always get at least level 3 or level 4 on their twists and their lifts as well. Like, they are just so spectacular. So I'm just hoping that they just keep working and, like I said, just land the Sal's or in some way or another. And I think that they'll be right there.
It makes me so sad that we're only going to see these programs a couple of times in the season.
No.
I know. I kind of hope that they keep, especially the free for next season. That free skate has like the potential to be legendary.
Recycle it.
Yeah, I would totally be fine if they recycled the free.
I saw so many videos of them like fan cams of them practicing the free, and I just refused to watch any of them because I wanted to be surprised when they actually did it in competition for the first time, and I'm so glad I waited.
It's just magical.
I was too impatient and watched practice videos, and then I was still ended up being completely like surprised at their performance and ended up crying.
I only saw the free really skated like once in practice because the second time, like for the pairs free practice, Wenjin kind of cut her hand on something that I still haven't figured out what it was. And like for like half of their run through, she was just like, I don't know what to do about my bloody hand.
Just pairs things. So as you can tell, Kat had quite a good time at Four Continents.
Oh yes, it was worth it, honestly. And then getting the flower crown on her, I was like, this is my entire purpose of being here right now.
Your life has been fulfilled.
Yeah, you can die happy.
I'm so happy that they ended up in official photos in that flower crown. Like, I'm so happy.
Yes. Okay, so moving on to the silver medalists, Kirsten Mortales and Michael Marinaro. You know, they skated 2 really good programs here, and I think they would have won overall if they didn't have that one problem in the free skate with the lift.
Oh my goodness. Can I just say that watching that live was so terrifying because I immediately had flashbacks to Caden LeDuc.
Oh no.
And she literally looked like she was panicking, like on that lift. Do you remember when you guys were like, or I just showed up in the chat and I was like, what was the level on that lift? Because that was really tragic.
Yeah, it was, you could see that she was like wobbling in the air and Michael was struggling to, you know, keep her steady and keep them held up properly. So it wasn't surprising that that lift got a level 2 and negative GOE as well.
Michael Marinaro did a really good job of saving that because that could have ended up really bad. So props to him.
Yeah, I think that was the same lift that they actually struggled on at Autumn Classic that Kat and I saw live where like she was in the air but kind of unsteadily in the air, and you could actually see her like talking to him while she was up there. She was like, what are you doing? Like,
oh yeah, and then afterwards the death glare, she was like, what was that?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, like 2 really good skates from them obviously, but I mean, I've seen both of these programs live twice this season and I honestly couldn't tell you a single thing about them.
I think especially watching it after you watch Sway and Han, you can definitely note the difference in quality in terms of just the program and choreography and also like the pair skating quality. It's just not at the same level.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about them winning the short program and being so close to Sway and Han. You know, they skated the best that they have this season in the short program here. But even then, there is a marked difference between their overall quality of skating and Sway and Han. Even when Sway and Han have a fall in the short, there is still a noticeable difference.
Just like the skating quality should put them so much farther ahead. And interpretation and like the construction of the programs. Like I'm so bored by that Pink Floyd program. Like especially after watching like how breathtaking Sway and Han's like free skate was. It was like, this feels...
I had one of those moments where it's like, do I like their Pink Floyd free skate or do I just enjoy listening to their music kind of thing? Because I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, so I think I just kind of liked it by association.
So moving on to the bronze medalists here, Peng and Jin. So I just want to say how proud I am of this team, that they went from not qualifying for the free skate at the Olympics to winning silver at the Grand Prix final and then bronze here at Four Continents in less than a season is just a crazy amount of progress. And they've really been holding the fort for Chinese pairs while Sui and Han were on hiatus. And I think with the momentum they have this season, I don't think they've actually finished off the podium at any of their events.
They haven't, yeah.
They could definitely challenge for a world medal if they skate two solid programs. And, like, they beat Tarasova and Morozov in Grand Prix final, which I personally was not expecting to happen. And I think they can do it again. And they can get onto that world podium if they're clean. And I hope they do.
I fully support them getting onto that podium at Worlds. So, moving on to the men. For the podium, in gold we have Shoma Uno of Japan. In silver we have Boyang Jin of China. And then in bronze we have Vincent Zhou of the US. So, Shoma nabs his first ever ISU Championship gold medal.
Woo!
Woohoo!
The silver curse is broken.
Silver curse is broken.
I actually roped in one of my friends that lived in LA to come watch the ladies and the men's free with me. And she actually knew who Shoma and Boyang were, so she was really excited to see them.
Who doesn't know about the Japanese sensation
Yeah,
Shoma
I know,
Uno?
right? I brought her in to watch the men's free with me, and I was just like, I'm so happy that no one severely imploded in the last group, because I would have traumatized her forever, because I brought her down to the front row with me, and I would have traumatized her if, like, say the group 4 at Worlds 18 happened.
No, don't remind me.
No.
I was just like, if Shoma implodes because of his ankle and then Boyang implodes because he's imploded on his free all season, I would have been so sad.
The men's free skate at Worlds 2018 did not happen, Kat. It did not happen.
Group 4 did not happen, aside from Nathan.
Yeah, Group 3 happened, and they were great.
Yeah. It was so surprising to see so many back-to-back clean frees or near clean frees in the men's event at the free. That was just... what?
So I was so happy that she was able to see, like, Shoma and Boyang do so well here, because... that could have gone a completely different route.
It could have gone the way of the Euros men's free skate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Again, another group we do not want to revisit.
No. But Shoma broke the world record in the free skate with his performance of Moonlight Sonata here, which by like 7 points as well, which was very impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive and also... slightly questionable.
A bit of a head scratcher for me personally.
As we talked about before, his quad flip was pretty clearly under-rotated and his quad toe was quite on the borderline. So I think if his quad flip was called, it would have been a lot closer. I think even if his quad flip was called under-rotated, I think they still probably would have given it to him. But it just would have been like within a point or two.
Yeah, I agree with that. So like the world record previously was 190-ish, which actually is pretty low for a top man, even when you consider that they've taken one of the jumping passes out, because the historic world record was like 223. So, one jumping pass doesn't really account for 33 points. So I'm actually surprised, quite frankly, that it took this long for the world record to be broken. But yeah, like Evie said, he would have lost about 3 points had they called the under rotation on the quad flip, and then that would have put him at about 194 in the free skate. So yeah, I think if they had knocked the GOE down for that comparably, it would have been about a point or two above the world record. Like personally, if I had given him the benefit of the doubts on the quad toes, I would have given him the world record just by a little bit, not by 7 points. But I mean, all of that said, like this was by far one of the best free skates we've seen from any man all season in international competition. And I'm incredibly glad that he survived given his ankle injury, because I was fully prepared for the worst to happen, and that he finally had what was pretty much a clean program. I think I'm really proud of him for being able to pull that out under the circumstances, and I hope that this is going to be a confidence boost for him heading into Worlds at home against his two main rivals.
Yeah, I'm so glad that this was like definitely his best performance of the free this season. And I really wish that he could have skated the short program clean, but that program has really grown on me. Like, his movements now in that step sequence are just so crisp and super sharp, and he sells it so well. And he gets really, really amazing speed and ice coverage on the step sequence as well. He's just really impressive.
I think the performance level of his free skate was probably the highest that we've seen it all season. He really kept me engaged in the program, which has kind of been a problem that I've had while watching him, where I kind of either while I'm watching it, I either focus completely on like if he's going to survive his jumps, or I keep focusing on the fact that the first half is pretty empty still. But he actually managed to keep my attention in this performance, and he really kind of drew me in. I think this is the first time that I've actually like really liked this program. I hope this continues. I hope this stays for Worlds, because, you know, especially if he skates it this well at Worlds and he manages to rotate the quad flip, you know, he's definitely going to contend for the podium, if not the title.
Yeah, just pray for his ankles.
Pray for ankles,
yes,
as usual.
please.
Can I just donate my ankles, please, to all the figure skaters? I don't need them.
Shoma, if you're listening, please rest.
Should we talk about our silver medalist, Boyang Jun? Never underestimate Boyang. He is not a first half of the season skater. You know, he has that kind of reputation where he always peaks like in the second half, and he pulled it off here, you know.
I mean, if you're going to peak, you want to peak in the second half anyway, because that's when all the major titles are.
Yeah. Like last year, he peaked when 4 continents in the Olympics happened, and the year before that, he peaked where Worlds was, and the year before that, he peaked at Worlds as well. So, you know, there's kind of a running thing where Boyang always does well in the second half, but kind of tanks the first. And just, I think, especially after Chinese Nationals, where he skated like 2 nearly clean programs, I think that was definitely a real confidence booster for him.
He flies during those jumps. Oh my goodness. Like, you genuinely believe that he might actually fly out of the rink. When he picks in for that quad lutz, oh my goodness, it flies.
I'm kind of worried about the quad lutz just because the landings have been really shaky at this competition and at Chinese Nationals, and then throughout the season he struggled to land them because they were like decently consistent last season and the season before that. So, well, at least in the second half of the season they were. So I don't know what's going on with that. If it's just like a response of he's been training his other things, because like his skating skills and his spins have improved since last season. You can tell that he's been training both of those in the off season, and I don't know if that's just like he's been focusing more on improving himself as a whole rather than, you know, finessing his jump technique. That could be a thing, but just I'm so glad that he managed to get on the podium here after quite a disappointing first half of the season. And just, he looks so happy up there.
I just want to point out that I feel like 2 mostly clean programs from him should have put him ahead of Vincent by more than a point.
Oh yeah, completely.
And closer to Shoma overall. Like, the fact that Shoma was ahead of Boyang by 16 points in the free skate is pretty hard to explain to me when both of them made one noticeable error. Like, they both stepped out of a jump. And plus, with the Shoma's under rotation that we talked about already, I feel like Boyang probably should have been a little bit closer to like 185, 190 than he actually was. But yeah, it's just so proud of him, and I'm so glad that he's getting the momentum here at 4 continents. Like, again, if you're going to peak in the second half of the season. And I hope that he really kind of tries to drill those landings going forward, because he is not going to be able to give away any points on landings if he wants to make the podium at Worlds.
Especially because his PCS are not at the same level as some of the other top guys. He's really going to need to rely on his technical content in order to make up that gap. But I think that he definitely could if he lands the quad lutzes and quad toes like he normally can. Like, that quad lutz is a stunner when he lands them clean. Like, I've seen a couple of them in practice, and yeah, they're just beautiful.
Going on to Vincent in bronze, you know, we talked about how his under rotation issues in both programs, you know, it was kind of a mess scoring wise. I think performance wise, he performed both of his programs here the best of the season so far, barring maybe US Nationals, because those were really strong. I think his programs this season are still the strongest that he's ever had. But yeah, it's kind of hard to focus on what he's putting out there when his scores are this crazy.
Not only that, but watching him live, this is the first time that I'm seeing Vincent live, and compared to the other guys, he's really slow, and his step sequence also doesn't really cover that much ice. And he also doesn't have the knee bend and flow that the other men have. Like his skating skills are really not that great, and his posture could also use some improvement.
Yeah.
Like he really does rely on that technical content in order to keep himself in contention. And then with his history of under rotations, I just don't know how successful he'll be without working on the other parts of his packaging if he wants to excel internationally in the future. Because it seems right now they're just focusing on having him expand his technical repertoire and, you know, hopefully working on those under rotations. But he really has a lot of work to do with the rest of his overall basic skating.
It's really evident, even, you know, from a stream, like just the difference between Vincent's skating skills and like Shoma or Keegan is just really, really striking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I wasn't sure if you could tell any of those things on the stream, but especially watching it live, his weaknesses are incredibly apparent.
I mean, I agree with Kat that, you know, he relies a lot on his tech content, and in fairness to him, his triples are actually pretty good. Like, he gets really solid air position, really, you know, tight rotations on his triples. Unfortunately, again, with how inconsistent the calls are, his team is pretty obviously aware that it's better to just go for the quads and just hope that they don't get called than to actually, you know, take a step back and kind of rework the basics and make sure he's actually getting his rotations. And unfortunately, when he doesn't really have, like, the performance and the skating skills to shore up, you know, less than ideal technique, it's really hard to see him breaking into that top, you know, 6 or top 7 men internationally.
So in 4th place, we have Keegan Messing of Canada. And I think his free skate here was definitely the best that he's performed it in the season so far. And honestly, I think I would have put him on the podium above Vincent. I think he would have gotten on the podium if Vincent's short programs under rotations were called.
The quality of his skating is just so high, like high and above Vincent's, and I think that should have been the difference, to be honest. He has such great skating skills.
When you watch him live, you can hear like the depth of his edges as he's moving through steps, which is just amazing. Yeah, he has some of the best skating skills in the field and pretty solid jumps. Even if I don't, you know, fully connect with his programs or his skating, I think that he should have been bronze.
Jason, and Shoma have the best skating skills in this field.
Oh, by far.
Definitely, I think after Canadian Nationals, it was kind of like a wake-up call for him that, you know, he needs to be at his best in the second half of the season, considering he got silver there, and he didn't have the greatest placement at the Grand Prix final either. So I think if he keeps skating like he's skating, he definitely has the chance to break into, like, top 5 at Worlds, even possibly podium if, like, someone makes a mistake, I guess, in the top. So, a shout out, just quickly, to Donovan Carrillo from Mexico, who finally showed up to a competition!
Woo!
Yay!
I'm so proud of him.
He made it!
If people don't know, Donovan only showed up to one competition in the first half of the season, which was the Junior Grand Prix in Bratislava. And then he withdrew from a couple of Challenger Series competitions. So he trains in Mexico, and his coach actually coaches him for free. And he lives with his coach as well because his family lives too far away from the rink that he trains at to, like, commute easily every day. And he also coaches at his local rink to subsidize all the costs of his competitive career because he basically gets no funding from the Mexican Federation. And just to hear the crowd support of Donovan at this event was so good. Like, they were cheering for him so loudly.
It was so amazing to see how much the crowd adored him. And he was such a sweetheart. Like, I saw him multiple times just signing autographs and taking photos with fans in the corridors, like outside the rink. And he is just so friendly and wonderful.
He is really great. And even after he had such a rough free skate, like,
oh my god, the sombrero though. Oh my gosh.
Someone threw him a sombrero afterwards, and then he wore it and did like a spread eagle, like smiling while wearing it to show it off at the end. And like that kind of reaction, like that free skate was extremely rough. Like, he fell multiple times in that, and yet he was still able to finish it, you know, with a smile.
He has such potential, though. Like, even regardless of, how his story is inspirational, he is a great skater. If he actually, got the kind of funding that he needed and the competition experience that he really needs, who knows, like, what he could turn out like.
He definitely has some technical weaknesses in regards to his jumps. They're not the greatest, but, he has been working really hard on it. Every time I see him, I just want to basically like throw money at him to fund his career.
Yes.
He deserves it. I want to like send him to a good jump coach, because then he would be able to rise up the ranks. And it's good to see that now he actually has opened up a support page on his website, and then we'll put a link in the description of this episode to it. So if you are a fan of Donovan and you want to support him and his skating career, you can go donate some money to him to help him do that, because I'm sure he has lots of fans that would be more than willing to help him out on this.
So for the ice dance event for continents, in first place we had Madison Chalk and Evan Bates of the U.S. Second place, Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Pogge of Canada. And in third place, Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier, also of Canada.
Okay, so I'm here as always to give my rant on the rhythm dance, because oh boy, do I have things to say.
I did not get to actually analyze the levels because I was sitting there live and there's no tech box on the Jumbotron at live events. It was just me being like, Evie, what are the levels? What's the level on this?
Okay, yes. So basically, the levels here were kind of a mess. I mean, I'm not really surprised considering a lot of the top teams haven't, especially the North American top teams, haven't skated great Tango Romanticas in general for the first half of the season.
Right.
So, wasn't completely shocking. Basically, I was really disappointed that Chalk and Bates didn't win the rhythm dance, because they had the highest base value of all of the teams in the rhythm dance. They almost skated a clean program. They only missed one level, which was one key point in one of the sections of Tango Romantica. And if they didn't have that, they would have skated it clean. And yet, they did not win the segment.
Which is impressive because they're not known for being technical skaters either.
Not at all, no.
Yeah. And obviously, Hubble and Donahue ended up winning the rhythm dance, which, isn't that surprising. They did get a season's best, which kind of was a little bit surprising considering their base value was the lowest of the top 4 skaters here. It was also lower than the 6th place and the 8th place skaters, and it was about the same base value as 10th place. So that's a bit of a mess, and that was also overall in their season the second lowest base value that they've ever gotten in that rhythm dance. The lowest being a Grand Prix final, and obviously we already went off on that in the Grand Prix final episode.
I don't even know what has happened to Maddie's skating skills. I know,
right?
Their rockers were so flat, even from halfway across the rink. I could tell. I didn't think either of them got their rockers. They gave Zach the rocker, but it still looked flat to me.
It looked flat to me as well, but especially considering, Maddie has been the better skater of the two in the last couple of seasons. She's the one that really had the better skating skills and quality of edge overall. And now this season, like you said, Kat, I wonder where her skating skills have gone, because she's just not hitting that quality of edge that she has been in the past.
I'm not sure if it's just, I don't know, that she's not into the programs or they're not drilling them as much, but she has historically been so much stronger, and now I'm not sure what happened.
I mean, it's not surprising that they got a season's best in the rhythm dance, because if they skate anywhere close to clean, the judges are really willing to hand out the big PCS for them,
and the GOE
as well. It was crazy. They only got a level 2 on their midline step sequence, and they got nearly a +4 total GOE. Meanwhile, Chalk and Bates, who got a level 4 on their circular step sequence, only got around a +3 in total.
Which is so incredible considering how hard it is for these teams to get level 4s.
And once you add up the GOE to the base value of the step sequences, the level 2 and level 4 only ended up being a point different.
Which should not be right. It just goes to show that now all of the politicking, especially with the +5, -5, has gone straight to the GOEs and the PCS. You can make all the difference with that. At that point, do levels really matter, right?
Yeah, well, Hubble and Donahue, their wins earlier in the season have led them to believe that you don't have to hit their levels. because even if they don't hit their levels, they're going to get the GOE to boost them to the top, right? And this was actually said by Maddie after they won Grand Prix final. They were like, oh, we're not really focusing on levels. We're trying to improve the quality of our skating, which, you know, sounds nice on paper and everything until you realize that's literally the opposite of what an ice dancer's job is. Like, your job as a top ice dancer is to be able to use your edges, which you're not doing.
I mean, the judges were totally ready to give them the win overall. Like, if they didn't have that error in the free dance, which we will talk about later, they would have totally won. I mean, nearly all of the judges placed them first in PCS, except for one, I think. So, you know, that's not surprising, but it's just kind of disappointing because we've seen this happen so many times. But I think that, like, especially going into Worlds next month, if the European teams have been much more solid than the North American teams when it comes to the rhythm dance. So I think that Hubble and Donahue need to, like, be prepared to, you know, in the next month, train the hell out of their levels, really drill everything.
Drill their lifts too at this point. Might be a good idea to revisit those. Because
if they don't, they could risk, you know, not getting on the podium at the end of the day. So going on to our gold medalists, Madison Chock and Evan Bates, a really strong outing considering this is only their third competition of the season. Personally, I think their programs are really, really strong this season, but I think their free dance score was a little bit over the top, at least in my opinion. I think their free is definitely in need of some refinement and polishing overall. And I think that's just an effect of them missing the first half of the season.
Right, yeah.
They haven't had that kind of practice time or that competition time.
Their lifts, though, man. Except for the exit out of that one lift.
Oh, yeah, where she, like, tripped.
Their curve lift was really solid, and their straight line lift was really solid as well. But, yeah, the choreo lift, I mean, they've had that problem before. They did the same kind of thing at Torun Cup in January, where she completely tripped out of the end, but the judges didn't care really here.
Yeah.
They still got really good GOE. I think most of them judges gave them like +3s for that, even though that was very obviously stumbled. I don't necessarily agree with them winning the free dance. I think that should have gone to Gillis and Poirier because their free dance is absolutely amazing.
I agree.
But, you know, I'm not upset at all that they won here. I think that they're definitely a team that's going to challenge for a medal position at Worlds, and which is great to see considering they're coming back from Maddie's injury.
And a pretty disappointing end of the season last year as well. So it's great to see them kind of pushing towards the top again.
I think Chock and Bates versus Hubble and Donahue is kind of another like version of, you know, the crowd favorite kind of really get you going programs versus the strong skaters. Relatively speaking, like I think Hubble and Donahue are objectively better skaters than Chock and Bates, but they just don't have quite the charisma and the performance to really like convince people of that. And that's like, I feel like that's why people are suddenly like wanting Chock and Bates to kind of rise above Hubble and Donahue as US #1. So I guess we can move on to our silver medalists, Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Pogé of Canada. A really technically solid short program from them because they've not historically been very technically strong skaters. They actually almost got perfect levels aside from missing a key point in part of the Tango Romanica, and then Andrew kind of, you know, messing up with the twizzles.
What else is new?
I mean,
honestly,
I saw that happen and I was like, God, Andrew.
Kind of expect it to happen a little bit.
I mean, he lived in the free dance. That's something.
Yes, I was holding my breath.
If you're going to live in one of the segments, live in the free. But like,
yeah, definitely.
For the fact that this is their first major international outing in nearly a year, that's silver is not too shabby for them.
And I still love that free dance so much. It's gorgeous. It was really nice to see it nice and clean here.
I think that like Chock and Bates, their programs still need that kind of polish and that refinement overall because, again, they haven't had the same level of practice as some of the other teams here. I don't think that their elements overall were as clean as some of the others.
Right. I think with them, it's more like they need more practice on the elements because I can tell that they've obviously skated it many times in front of an audience. So the performance aspect of it was really great still, but like the elements still need some work. Like, oh my God, guys, your twizzles, please.
I mean, they've always had...
Yeah, they've always had, like, they're kind of slow.
Yeah. They're slow, they struggle holding the edge on them, you know, then they frequently step out or miss rotations and so lose levels on that.
Or like will go out of sync.
Yeah, and that's something that's really, you know, obviously if you don't have good twizzles, you're not going to do very well overall, but all of their other strengths make up for that almost. But I think going into Worlds, they're really going to need to be careful with their twizzles because this field is going to be, well, maybe not for gold, but the field for silver and bronze at Worlds is going to be so... Listen, you know who's going to win Worlds.
It's going to be Stefana Van Buchen.
Oh my god, I wish. But anyway, yeah, they're going to definitely need to be careful with their twizzles if they want to get on the podium at Worlds, because if everyone skates their best and they have problems with their twizzles, that's going to get them off the podium.
Like between the Russian teams and like the North American teams and then obviously the French team, it's gonna be a really, really tough fight for the podium. Like anything could happen, I guess. Honestly, if Hubble and Donahue had not gotten that base on the stationary lift, they could have really been pushing towards Papadakis' own level scores in the free dance, I think.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think they would have probably gotten like near to 130, but not over past 130.
Let's see, like 129. That's still quite a bit considering like Papadakis and Cicerone tend to not do as well in their rhythm dance.
I still think that even if Papadakis and Cicerone didn't skate their best, that they would still win overall.
They should still win.
They should still win. Their quality of skating is the best in the field. There is no question. So moving on to the bronze medalists, Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier. Honestly, I just love their free dance so much.
Every time I just like hear the music and I start to cry. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous.
And that was the best performance they've done of it this season by far.
Oh yeah, by far.
Absolutely. It's incredible. Like they kind of remind me of like Sway and Han's free skate in that like they're doing innovative and new things with their choreography and in their movements. And it all just works together so well. And their musicality and performance of it is just, it's breathtaking.
Honestly, I am in the belief that they should have won the free dance, if not won overall.
That extended lift deduction.
Oh, God.
Why?
They would have beat Weaver and Poje if not for the extended lift deduction plus the GOE they lost on not executing the lift properly. Like, Weaver and Poje should be worried about their spot as Canadian number one.
This is the second time that they've lost in the free to Gillis and Poirier.
Yeah.
So I think this is definitely going to have to be, and it's another wake-up call for them, I guess, after Canadian Nationals. But I really wish that they would give Piper and Paul the scores that they deserve, not just in the GOE but PCS, because they aren't hitting at it as well as other teams, even when they skate the program clean.
Her reaction in the kiss and cry was like, oh
so close.
No, we just got we were so close. If not for that deduction, but you know.
Okay, so moving on to Hubble and Donahue. I think a lot of people who aren't Ice Dance fans, or even people who are Ice Dance fans, were quite confused when they saw that they got the stationary lift that down to a base value only, no levels whatsoever, and that is because that Zach didn't establish the lift really well, and he traveled quite a lot on the ice. And so when the tech panel is counting the levels for stationary lifts, they're not allowed to count the features for the level until the couple stays stationary and rotates on the spot. So you can it's actually quite handy that they did it in the middle of the rink, because you can see that they start in the middle of the logo and then they travel to the right edge of it. You can see how much they travel, like about a meter in total. And honestly, kudos to the tech panel for picking that up and calling them on that. That's really encouraging to see, especially, you know, just after the season that we've had so far when it comes to ice dance. Seeing that kind of strictness when it comes to lifts is great to see.
Yeah, and I should note that the assistant tech specialist is actually Jonathan Guerrero's mom.
Yes.
And so that is very interesting to see how maybe the politics would work out in this instance.
And we also, the technical controller for the event was Helena Gordon-Polterak, who's the chair of the Ice Dance Technical Committee for the ISU as well. So I was kind of expecting that if the calls were going to be either harsh or lenient, they were going to be more on the harsh side, because, you know,
the person who wrote the rules is literally there.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, they had, obviously, that was a crazy moment in the free dance, so they lost a lot of points.
One. That was the BV.
Yeah, 1 point on the base value for a stationary lift. Oh boy.
Like, the judges were fully prepared to give them the win if it weren't for that lift. Like, with the points and the GOE they lost.
Oh, when I saw the TS, like, when they finished, like, I don't remember who told me that with the TS, I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to win. They're going to get, like, 128.
As soon as I saw they got a level 4 on their step sequence, their midline step sequence, I was like, they've won. They're going to give it to them. And then, I think throughout the competition, the scores weren't taking very long to be announced. Like, the skaters were maybe in the kiss and cry for, like, after they cut to them on the stream, the skaters were maybe waiting for, like, 30 seconds before they announced the scores. And they took so long to announce Hubble and Donohue's scores in the free dance. And we all were like, is there something wrong? Like, is what's going on? If the panel's taking that long to give you the scores, there must be something wrong with the program. And oh boy,
man.
That was
was there something wrong.
Difficult to watch. I don't know. I don't actually think this is going to hurt them that much going into Worlds, personally. Like, if they can skate 2 clean programs at Worlds, I think they're still very much in medal contention territory because of the crazy GOE that they get and the fact that they get very generously rewarded in components.
It only just kind of halts their momentum a little bit, and, like, it gives Chalk and Bates a leg up, like, over them now a little bit, just because now they've went against them.
Well, this means that Papadakis and Cizeron are the only team going into Worlds that have remained undefeated throughout the season.
But they've only competed twice internationally.
I know. It's the thought that counts, okay?
Yeah.
But I think overall that Hubble and Donohue, as you guys said, like, I don't think that they're in significant danger of losing out on a podium spot at Worlds if they skate, like, as well as they have been throughout the season. But at the same time, a lot of the European teams have either come close or surpassed their season's best at other events. Like, we had just, like, Stepanova and Buchan at Euros, they surpassed their Hubble and Donohue season's best there. And we've also got the potential of, like, Sinitsina and Katsalapov, who have that kind of scoring potential because they are quite good at hitting their levels. And then we also have, like, the dark horses that are Guinard and Fabry. There are a lot of teams that have the possibility, if they hit the levels and Hubble and Donohue don't, they have the possibility to overtake them. So I think Hubble and Donohue should really be wary of that going into Worlds next month.
But on the other hand, Hubble and Donohue have beat most of those teams in direct competition earlier this season. So it's really, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting fight.
It'll all depend on who's on the tech panel. Honestly,
yeah.
I'm so interested in seeing who's going to be on that tech panel.
Like, going into Worlds, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that Papadakis and Cizeron are very heavy favorites for gold, barring some disaster. And then there's about 6 teams fighting for the other 2 medals.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a nail-biter of an event.
I'm super excited and also really scared, which is kind of the mood of being a figure skating fan.
And just a quick shout-out, as I have to do, to Wang Liu, because they were the top finishers that weren't Canadian or American at 4 continents. They placed 7th, which I was kind of predicting and expecting, but just this is the 3rd time that they've broken 100 in the free dance this season, and they're still the first and only Asian team to do so. So I'm very proud of them. I'm still not the biggest fan of their free dance because they did restructure it in December. They changed the second half of it completely and they moved a lot of the elements around, and I personally don't think that was a good choice, but it did look really good here. They got a season's best. They were very happy with their scores, but just the rhythm dance nearly gave me a heart attack.
Yeah.
The twizzles.
Please drill your twizzles.
Yes, I was just like, oh my goodness. When she almost crashed into him, I was like, oh no, we could have had it all.
I don't know. It was kind of funny to me, like, because when I've seen them in practice live, like, he's always the one that's usually kind of like almost crashing into people because he's so tall.
Shinyu has, like, he's got no awareness of other people in practice sessions. But the thing is that they did a really amazing set of twizzles in the warm-up in the rhythm dance, and it got caught on the camera, and I was just like, that's it, guys, they're gonna do really great, they're gonna blow us all away kind of thing. And then obviously I should learn my lesson and not get too hyped up over warm-ups. I really hope that they do well at Worlds next month. I need Asian ice dance to rise, guys. So, moving on to the ladies' event. our podium, in gold we have Rika Kihira of Japan. In silver we have Elizabeth Tursunbayeva of Kazakhstan. And in bronze we have Mai Mihara, also of Japan. This ladies event, guys, oh boy.
Oh my goodness, was so crazy.
That definitely happened.
It happened, yep.
The top 3 after the short program were not on the podium for the first time in 4 continents history.
What kind of a reversal?
I know, right? Honestly, I was not shocked at all that Rika pulled out the win. I just knew. I was like, oh, she's gonna be fine. Like, even though she had, the boot issues and the finger issue dislocated, I mean, like, I just somehow knew that she was gonna pull it out in the free. Like, that free is just so magical. She trained it so well. Like, it almost feels like she could skate it at any time and it would be perfect because she's drilled it so many times.
I mean, this is the 3rd time that she's skated that free skate so well after a disappointing short program. She did it at NHK and she did it at France. And now she's, here and she skated it as well as she could have. I am glad that she took out the second triple axel in the free, that the one not in combo. That was a very smart choice for her.
Especially since she was able to make that decision kind of on the fly as well. Like, her ability to kind of regroup with those 2 opening triple axels and just kind of do the mental calculations to see what would be the best way to proceed is just so incredible. Like, Rika from last season would not have been able to pull that out. I'm just so shocked, or not shocked, but I'm so impressed that this free has turned out beautiful like every single time she skated it. She hasn't skated it poorly ever. And because it's such a unique and beautiful program, like, the judges are willing to reward it as well.
I feel like you could wake her up at 2 in the morning and tell her to skate it and she would be able to skate it clean. Like, you can see just how well trained she is, going into it. And I think this competition was important for her in the sense that I feel like it finally showed that she doesn't actually need a clean short program to win overall against, a deeper field than she faced at her, 2 Grand Prix assignments, because her score ceiling is so high in the free skate that she's able to make up a score deficit even if she's behind.
I'm surprised at this point that she hasn't decided to just take the triple axel out in the short program. Like, I guess she has something to prove to herself, but this is not the first time. Like, she has messed up that triple axel in the short program and then come back in the free. Like, I'm not sure if it's just part of her strategy to, do the triple axel, see how it goes, and then just pull it all out in the free. But she doesn't need that triple axel. Like, she could get 0 points on that triple axel and then pull out an amazing free and win. Like, she's proven that multiple times that she could do that.
So I think it could be a different story at Worlds, I think, if she messes up in the short program and Alina is clean. Because Alina's season's best in the short program is 80 plus. And Rika got 68 in the short program here. So if that's the scenario that plays out at Worlds, that's going to be a pretty hard difference to make up, even with how high her scoring potential is in the short program. So I feel like she feels like she at least needs to go for the triple axel.
Okay, our silver medalist, our surprise silver medalist, Elizabeth Tursunbayeva, with a fully rotated quad sal attempt in the free skate.
What?
I had 0 idea that this was going to happen. I had 0 idea, okay? And then that happened, and she fell on, and I was like, did she just do a quad sal? Like, I had no idea. That was going to happen.
It was cleanly rotated, but she just slipped off the edge when she was landing it, which is just crazy. I mean, she's had a quad sal in practice for a couple of years now. She had it when she was in Toronto as well, when she was training at TCC. And now she's back training it again. Now she's moved back to Ateri. But, I mean, honestly, I don't particularly like seeing her practice quads just because she has a really long history with really bad hip injuries.
And she's so small.
And
oh my goodness.
She is tiny, which is kind of a relief, honestly, because she is 18, or she is, older than a lot of the other girls at Ateri's camp training quads. And she has definitely kind of stopped growing. So there's not really any fear of her possibly outgrowing the jumps, I guess. But at the same time, I'm just I know how much that hip injury plagued her last season, and I really don't want her to aggravate that again by training the quads. I don't know. I just have fears, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. She has a pretty nice triple cell, I think. I'm not too worried about her training the quad cell, especially since she's kind of had it in the works for a while. And honestly, just like, I would love to see her be the first senior lady to land a quad. Just because of like how unexpected and chaotic it would be.
Oh my god, so chaotic.
I don't like... even here, she was definitely, like, a dark horse medalist, right? Like, no one really thought that she was going to be on the podium at Four Continents. And
yeah.
then, she ended up being the first lady from Kazakhstan to medal at an ISU championship. So, like, I don't know. I feel like we might see something surprising at Worlds, and I'm kind of ready for it and also kind of scared.
So, our bronze medalist, Mai Mihara. So now she's collected all 3
Woo.
Four Continents medals.
She finally didn't place 4th. Oh my
Yay!
god.
The potato medal curse has been broken. Oh, I'm just so happy for her. That free skate, guys. Oh my god. I have never seen her perform that free skate so well, and she's had really good performances of that in the past, like at Four Continents last year, or at Japanese Nationals as well last season.
And
but
this season.
This performance was just, it made me cry so much.
Oh my god. She was so good. And she was so devastated after her short program.
Yeah, that was so sad.
I'm so happy that she was able to come back in the free. And she did so well.
I just wish that the judges would reward her more than overall.
67-ish, yeah.
67 PCS.
She can skate a clean program or like a messy program and still get that PCS. It's just a shame.
I don't understand how she's still getting, like, she's not getting all, like, 9s in skating skills.
She should get credit for being able to skate so well while she's suffering from arthritis.
Yep.
I mean, that's just insane. Like, you see, like, at competitions in the past season, we've had reports of her, like, holding heat packs on her joints before she's gone out to skate to minimize the pain, and just... that is so impressive to see her be able to be such a high caliber of athlete whilst having to deal with that much pain and trouble. Just, guys, I love Mai Mihara so much and I only want the best for her.
Yeah, I feel like if she had gotten the PCS that she deserved, she should have been in second, because she was in third by only about a point. And I'm just so sad about her perpetually, because she has all of the potential to be a world medalist. But she's currently, like, the 4th best of the Japanese ladies. And they only have 3 spots.
Can they just send her to, like, another country or something?
Can she compete for Canada? Can she, like, rescue the Canadian ladies field? I feel like that's something that should be looked into.
Mai, come skate for Australia. We'll take you.
Oh, my gosh.
Speaking of another Japanese lady, we have to talk, unfortunately, about Kari Sakamoto, who sadly missed the podium here. After a really brilliant short program, which, as I said before, I think should have been in first.
Oh, she should have gotten like 75 at least.
It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. The best that she's done that short program. But her free skate, yeah.
That was difficult to watch.
That was so rough. And especially because, like, after she popped that double axel, like, you could see on her face, she was like, oh, damn. Like, I shouldn't have done that.
And that combo is just like a money jump for her. Like, she nails that double axel, triple toe, double toe so well in most competitions.
She would have been solidly in second if she'd landed it.
Yeah, and she had to do an emergency combo.
I mean, good on her for, like, pulling that out, especially since it was, like, the last jump in her program that she was able to make it a combo is pretty impressive. Like, quick thinking on her part. But she did lose about 8 points by popping the double axel and then missing the combo. And so ultimately she only missed the podium by 0.3 of a point, which just really sucks.
I was so sad. I thought I could get a flower crown on Kaori because I've made one for her Grand Prix final and one for Four Continents, and she didn't podium at both. So I'm very, very sad. But, like, how crazy is it that, like, the depth in Japan is so incredible that, like, their national champion did not make the podium here, and, like, Rika, the only competition she didn't get gold at is at her domestic nationals, right? Like, at a domestic competition.
Yeah, well, Rika is the only lady going into Worlds undefeated.
Undefeated international, yeah.
Internationally, yeah. But I think Kaori's going to be fine. I think she definitely has the grit to kind of pull it back together and to have that, like, redemption skate at home as the reigning Japanese champion. So I'm not terribly worried about her. As long as she can, get that combo. Because she fell on it at Grand Prix Final, too. So now I'm just kind of, like, side-eyeing it. Like, you better not snake her.
Well, not so much license to kill, more license to thrill.
So our shout-out of the week goes to the female announcer of Four Continents, who was apparently singularly incapable of pronouncing any skater's name correctly.
Oh my god. The one at the practice sessions was even worse. I can't even explain to you how bad it was. It was like Team Coco and then Wang Lu. I think one of the other Chinese teams and William Badawi and Matilda Friend. Oh my goodness, those names were such. I should have recorded it. It was so. And before they announced Wang Lu, like the announcer messed up her name so bad she started cringe laughing.
Oh my god. This is not what she deserves.
It's like funny up to a certain point, and then it's just kind of like disrespectful to the skaters.
Yeah.
Where like you have one job as an announcer, and that's to get the names right. It's not asking a lot. Like Mai Mihara and Tim Coletto are not hard names to pronounce.
I mean, I do find it funny that this is like last year we had at Four Continents, we had another Tom Coletto moment, and now we're having it again here a year later.
Poor Tim.
Oh, I feel so sorry for Tim. But then, yeah, we also have Mai Mihara. We had Misato. Like, how did they pronounce her last name? It was like
they just gave up on it halfway through.
They gave it 20 more syllables, and then they'd said Shui Wang, and I'm like, you could say Shin Yu Liu, right? Why can't you say
right?
Shin Yu? It's not that hard, guys. I mean,
or like Rika Kahara. I'm like,
oh no,
it's literally like 5 syllables. Come on. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you again for our next episode, which will be about John Coughlin and Safe Sport.
If you want to get in touch with us, then please feel free to contact us via our website, inthelowpodcast.com, or on Twitter, Tumblr, or Facebook. You can find our episodes on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify.
If you enjoy the show and want to help support the team, then please consider making a donation to us on our Ko-fi page. And we'd like to give a huge thank you to all the listeners who have contributed to our team thus far.
You can find the links to all our social media pages and our Ko-fi on the website.
If you're listening on iTunes, please consider leaving a rating and a review if you enjoyed the show. Thanks for listening. This has been Evie,
Kat,
and Kite. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.